The committee got it right. Your Texas Longhorns are headed to the NCAA Tournament. So grab your dancing shoes. We're talking about the Horns Tournament draw today on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin native, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's show, Texas baseball introduces itself to the SEC with a 3-game sweep over Mississippi State. And I'll tell you why I love the NCAA tournament draw for the Texas women. That's all coming up. But first, they did it. We talked about the Longhorns needing 2 wins in Nashville to make the NCAA tournament. They beat Vanderbilt on Wednesday. They beat Texas A&M on Thursday, and that was enough to get the Longhorns in. Texas is one of 2 number 11 seeds in the Midwest region. The Longhorns will take on Xavier this Wednesday night in the first 4 in Dayton. The winner of that game will advance to take on the 6th seed Illinois on Friday in Milwaukee. And it turns out Texas was kind of safe. Now, I can't say they were safe because they're playing in the first 4, which means they were one of the last 4 teams in. But the committee had them as the first of the last 4 in, ahead of Xavier, San Diego State, and North Carolina, and obviously ahead of all of the teams that missed the cut, West Virginia, Indiana, Ohio State, et cetera, et cetera. Joe Lenardi had Texas out, so if you looked at his bracketology, you were probably sweating all day yesterday. Jerry Palm had Texas out. And those are 2 of the biggest names in bracketology. They both thought the Longhorns wouldn't make it. They both got it wrong. And good thing they did. Texas was safer than I think any of us expected. But the Longhorns earned it. They should be in the dance. We did a video last week comparing the Longhorns' resume to the other teams that were on the bubble. And the biggest thing for Texas and the biggest reason why the Horns ultimately got in, Texas had beaten more quality teams than anybody else by far. 7 Quadrant 1 victories for the Longhorns this year. There's only 18 teams in America who have more than that. And none of those 18 teams are on the bubble, by the way. They were all safely in the dance. So I get it. 6-12 in the SEC, not great, but every tournament game is a quad 1 game. And in my eyes, the committee's job is to put teams in who actually have a chance to win games against good teams. Texas has proven with 7 Quadrant 1 wins and 5 wins against ranked opponents that they can beat tournament caliber competition. A lot of the other teams on the bubble, they didn't prove that this year. Texas, by way of playing in the SEC, they got the chance to prove that, and they did a lot over the last couple of months. And let's call a spade here. SEC bias is what got Texas in. I mean, I complained about SEC bias forever when Texas wasn't in the SEC. Now that the Longhorns are in the SEC, I'm a huge fan of SEC bias. But really, the Southeastern Conference had the best season a single conference has had in modern college basketball. That was represented with the bracket, the fact that 14 SEC teams got into the dance, shattering the Big East record of 11 that they set a little more than a decade ago. 14 SEC teams got in, and a lot of those SEC teams were seated a little bit higher than most bracketologists thought. This conference got a ton of love from the selection committee, and deservedly so. This conference was incredibly good and incredibly deep, and 14 of 16 teams got in. I feel like LSU and South Carolina should be relegated or something. Maybe they should get kicked out for not being able to make the dance when everybody else did. But no, again, if Texas went 6-12 in the Big 12 this year, they're not even sniffing the NCAA tournament. Now look at West Virginia, the first team out. They had a much better conference record than Texas, but they didn't play in the SEC. So Texas, again, got plenty of opportunities to play against quality competition. And even in some of the games the Longhorns lost, they were very close and very competitive. They played Tennessee close in Austin. They played Auburn close in Austin. Obviously, look at the wins that they put up as well. To me, it was kind of a no-brainer especially considering the fact that we didn't get a ton of bid stealers over the weekend. I was watching that Memphis UAB game yesterday, kind of freaking out, like, oh my God, I hope UAB doesn't take Texas's spot. But when you look at the teams that were on the bubble, again, to me, it was clear and obvious. Yes, I'm biased. Look at the hat I'm wearing. Look at the Mo Bamba Time to Hoop shirt I'm wearing. Look at this TV screens behind me. Yeah, I'm willing to admit that I'm biased, but who you play and who you beat matters. This is not a college football playoff. Oh, hypothetically, if this team played that team, who would win? There are legitimate statistics and legitimate metrics out there that are created to compare NCAA tournament resumes. And quadrant one wins is obviously one that the committee values really, really highly. So is net, so is strength of record, so is a number of other things that Texas fared very well in. So those metrics absolutely mattered. And again, the Longhorns being able to play in the best conference in the sport helped them out for sure. We'll spend more time talking about Xavier tomorrow and Wednesday, but some early thoughts on this matchup. I think Texas is the better team, but here's the big but right here. Xavier is in Cincinnati, Ohio. The first four is in Dayton, Ohio. Those two cities are less than an hour away from each other. My point is, this will be a road game for Texas. Not ideal. You usually only get those home court advantages for like 1 and 2 seeds in the NCAA tournament. But the first four is always in Dayton. Xavier not good enough to get a field of 64 spot, so they're playing in the first four. But yeah, Texas is going to have to deal with what should be a pretty hostile environment on Wednesday night. Another interesting storyline. If you believe reports, a few years ago, there were reports out there that said if Rodney Terry didn't get the full-time job after 2023, Chris Del Conte was very seriously interested in hiring Sean Miller, who's Xavier's coach. He was their coach back then. He's the Musketeers coach right now. I wonder if the winner of this game on Wednesday gets to coach Texas this year. I don't know if that's the actual prize. The actual prize will be getting to play Illinois on Friday and, not having your season come to an end. But that is interesting there. I have no idea what the future holds for Rodney Terry. Maybe Texas making it to the tournament keeps him around. Maybe Texas needs to win this game on Wednesday. Maybe Texas needs to win a few games for RT to get brought back in 2026. But you do wonder if, where there's smoke, there's fire. There was a lot of smoke surrounding Sean Miller's name a couple of years ago. Could he be a target for the Longhorns if CDC makes a move whenever the season is over? By the way, Texas did beat Xavier in 2023 in the Sweet 16, 83-71, in the Longhorns' run to the Elite Eight that season. That game was never close. Like Rodney Terry got the better of Sean Miller a couple of years ago. So Xavier, 21-11 this year, 13-7 in the Big East. That was good enough to have them tied for fourth. Only one quadrant one win at Marquette against Shaka Smart, funny enough. But that's the biggest blemish on the resume. Again, much better record than Texas, but just one quadrant one win for the Musketeers all season long. It's why some folks weren't sure that they were going to get in the dance. Their best player is a guy named Zach Fremantle. I feel like he's been there for about 15 years. He's a stud, their leading scorer, their leading rebounder. He is a matchup nightmare because he has size and he can stretch the floor. Ryan Conwell averages about 16 points per game. He's their second leading scorer. He's a 42% three-point shooter. It's a very experienced team, right? Early thoughts on Xavier, just looking at Ken Palm, they are the second most experienced team in the country. Now, in the era of the transfer portal, a lot of those guys' experience came at other schools. But when you're just looking at how much Division I college basketball that roster has played, second most in America. It's a great passing team. They're an elite three-point shooting team, sixth in the country in that stat. That always scares me. I don't like running into teams that can shoot incredibly well in the tournament because, of course, you only get one chance against them to win. But they're not super big. And I think, again, I think this is a game that Texas can win. I wish Xavier was located in like West Virginia or Nevada or Washington or anywhere else outside of Ohio. But I still think Texas has a shot to win this game and move on to the round of 64 to take on Illinois. The good news for Texas, and I'll let you hear from Rodney Terry here in a moment, but the good news for Texas, the first four started in 2011 when they expanded the tournament from 64 to 68. In every year except for one, a team that played in the first four went on to win a game in the actual tournament. 2019 was the exception. But every other year, a first four team went on to win a game in the round of 64. And matter of fact, 2 first 4 teams actually made it all the way to the Final Four. Another Shaka Smart reference. I don't want to be doing that. Shaka Smart with VCU in 2011 went from first 4 to Final Four. And then UCLA did it in 2021, going from the first 4 to the Final Four as an 11 seed. So I don't know if those are realistic expectations for Texas, but again, history has shown that momentum actually matters. And if you're able to win a first 4 game on Tuesday or Wednesday in the tournament, you've got a shot to win a game on Thursday or Friday in the round of 64 in the tournament. So if Texas can get the job done on Wednesday night, maybe put the Longhorns to get past Illinois and maybe get a rematch with Kentucky. Texas beat Kentucky in the regular season. I wouldn't hate seeing that on, what would that be, on Sunday in the round of 32. Obviously, that's going to take the Longhorns winning 2 games before we get there. All right, let's let you hear from Rodney Terry, the head coach of the Texas men. He had a press conference right after Selection Sunday down on campus yesterday. Here's RT's opening thoughts on making the dance and this matchup with Xavier.
I'm excited about where we are. Obviously, we've loved to have won a few more games. Sure. I've been here 13 years, and, we understand what the standard expectations are at the University of Texas, and we don't shy away from that. And but we are excited about this opportunity to continue to play, and we've been granted 40 more minutes, just like everybody else in this tournament, and we're going to be excited about competing and obviously have a really good challenge in a very well coached Xavier team. A lot of respect for Sean Miller. I've had a chance to coach against his teams for a number of years, and his teams are always really good offensively. They play really fast in transition, and this team here in particular is a really good defensive team. So Sean's always done a great job. A lot of respect for Sean Miller.
Yeah, Sean Miller's a great coach, was at Arizona for a number of years, had some tournament success there, got let go after an NCAA scandal a few years ago, took the Xavier job where he was before he took the Arizona job, and the Musketeers back in the tournament again. So he is a very good coach, and we'll see. It's round 2. Rodney Terry got the better of Sean Miller in round 1 back in 2023. They will square off in the first 4 here in 2025. Again, we will continue to preview Texas and Xavier over these next couple of days before we get to Wednesday nights. All right, the Texas men won't be the only Longhorns dancing in March. The NCAA women's tournament bracket was also revealed last night. We're going to give some love to Vic Schaefer's squad and talk about the Horns' path to their first Final Four since 2003. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But hey, March Madness is here. Now that we're seeing the bracket, it is legit. And new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins over at FanDuel.com. That's right. Our friends at FanDuel are giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. That's 200 extra bucks to use on anything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. That's right. You can bet on Texas right now to beat Xavier. You can bet on Texas to win the national championship if you want to. Or, if you want to take a number 1 seed, go ahead. But it's your choice over there at FanDuel. You can pick the favorites. You can pick upsets, whatever you want. Just head over to FanDuel.com or use the FanDuel app. That is so simple to use. You get paid when you win instantly. No waiting around. This is the perfect time to head over to FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. And today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their website, super easy to use. It's packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. They've got a crazy big inventory, more than 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands. You're going to find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, our friends at Supply House, they offer expert support and industry-leading service, so you're always going to talk to a real person. And for you trade pros out there looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. And if you use the promo code SH5, you're going to get 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Don't forget that promo code SH5. All right, Selection Sunday isn't just for the men anymore. They used to reveal the men's bracket on Sunday and then the women's bracket on Monday. Well, the women added to their tournament a few years ago. They added the first four back in 2022. Everything got moved to Sunday. That's the worst bit of trivia hopefully you'll ever get on this podcast. No surprise, the Texas women given a number 1 seed. There was a little bit of nervousness following the AP poll that dropped last Monday after Texas lost to South Carolina in the SEC tournament final. Texas went from the number 1 team in that AP poll to number 5. And, of course, only 4 number 1 seeds. So you're thinking, oh, maybe there's a chance Texas was going to fall to a 2. But all of the bracketologists all week long kept the Horns as a 1. And more importantly, the committee did too. And Texas was the 3rd number 1 seed. So we talked about the Texas men being kind of safe in the field of 68. The Texas women were pretty safely a 1 seed. The good news is they avoid UConn. UConn was the top-ranked number 2 seed. Everybody knows how good of a coach Gino Auriemma is. Everybody knows the name Paige Beckers. That's a team that you would like to avoid having in your region, and Texas got to avoid having UConn in the region. That's the good. The bad, and we're thinking very far in advance here. We're counting our chickens before they hatch. But Texas is on the same side as South Carolina, who is the number 2 overall seed. Again, very far in advance. I'm not going to complain about Texas, South Carolina Part 4 because, well, if that happens, it'll happen in the Final Four. And Texas hasn't been to a Final Four since 2003. You get banners for a Final Four. So if Texas does get to play South Carolina, then we're going to call this a very successful season for Vic Schaefer and company. But, you'd like to put off South Carolina as long as you can, and maybe a national championship game against them would have been a little bit better. But that's all right. That's all right. Got to get there first. Maybe somebody else can knock off South Carolina before the Final Four. The draw for Texas, who they will play. Well, they're going to play the first 2 rounds here in Austin at Moody Center. They're going to open up this Saturday against the winner of High Point and William and Mary. It's one of the first 4 games for the women, so Texas doesn't know who they will play just yet. But those are the 2 16 seeds. If the Horns beat the 16, they will play the winner of Illinois and Creighton. The women and the men could be playing Illinois in this tournament. The Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games will be in Birmingham. So, again, one of your rewards, obviously you're the number 1 seed. You get, hypothetically, an easier path to advance deep in the tournament. But on the women's side, you get the first and second round games in your home gym. So Texas will play the first 2 games here. The Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games will be in Birmingham. Ohio State is the 4 seed. Tennessee is the 5 seed. So more than likely one of those 2 teams will be your Sweet 16 opponent. Texas beat Tennessee in the regular season, of course, in SEC play, 80-76, the final in that game. Taking a look at the rest of the region, TCU is the 2 seed. Talk about them in a moment. Notre Dame is the 3 seed. Notre Dame is one of 2 teams that beat Texas this year. Of course, the Longhorns are 31-3. They lost twice to South Carolina. The other loss came to Notre Dame. Notre Dame was criminally underseeded. I was watching the bracketology special on ESPN last night, and all of the analysts were stunned that Notre Dame was a 3. I mean, that was the number 1 team in the country like 3 weeks ago, and now they're a number 3 seed. They did lose 3 of their last 5 games to close out the regular season and the conference tournament. So I knew they weren't going to be a 1, but I think most people expected them to be a 2. Instead, they're a 3. And again, they're one of 2 teams to beat Texas this year. That was back in December in South Bend. Went to overtime. Texas lost 80-70. The Longhorns only scored 2 points in that overtime. Texas had 23 turnovers in that game. Very frustrating to watch. I think I was watching that on the way to the SEC championship in football, doing a little road trip to Atlanta. It was just the start of a very frustrating weekend all around. Sorry to bring that up. We were all having a good time here. That's on me. But yeah, it could be Texas and Notre Dame. And I think Texas and Notre Dame are going to rematch in the Elite 8. That's a great team. Hannah Hidalgo is one of the best players in the country. They've got 4 players who average double figures. If we do get a rematch, the good news is it won't be in South Bend, but that's a damn good Notre Dame team that probably should be a 2 seed. And that could be a tough task for Texas, who's been to the Elite 8 3 times under Vic Schaefer. They're trying to get over the hump and get into the Final Four. Notre Dame could be the team standing in their way. Maybe we shouldn't count out TCU, though. TCU actually beat Notre Dame in the regular season. So maybe I'm jumping the gun, assuming it'll be Texas and Notre Dame in the Elite 8. TCU won the Big 12 regular season and tournament titles. They've got Haley Van Lith. I think everybody knows who she is. for a couple of different reasons. Very talented. Sedona Prince is a monster. Feels like she's been playing women's college basketball for about 10 years. So some good teams, obviously. It's a 2-seed and a 3-seed we're talking about here. But I really like the draw for Texas. The good news is you only have to beat one of TCU or Notre Dame. Other good news, you don't have to deal with UConn, and you're not a number 2 seed. Again, there was some fear that Texas was going to fall to the number 2 line after losing to South Carolina, but the committee got it right. Texas stays as a number 1, and I think they've got a really, really good shot to be cutting down some nets and making it to Tampa for the Final Four. Again, the Longhorns will open up play this Saturday at Moody Center. We'll wait to see who their opponent is. All right, one more segment on today's edition of Locked On Longhorns. Man, what a weekend it was. The men are dancing, the women are dancing. Texas baseball should be dancing because they're not losing. About 17 straight wins for Texas baseball. They go on the road and sweep Mississippi State in Stark Vegas. Is it time to start talking about the Longhorns as a legit national championship contender? We'll discuss coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Factor. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. You can fuel your body without the hassle of cooking. You don't want to be cooking while these games are going on. You want to eat. You're going to have to eat. Factor makes it super easy. Their meals arrive fresh, never frozen. They've got 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week, so you can customize your menu to fit your goals. It's convenient. It's nutritious. They've got so much variety. Everything tastes great. They've got smoothies, breakfast, and snacks as well. So it's not just dinner that you've got to wait all day for. They're going to keep you well fed and nourished all day and all week long. Eat smart with our friends at Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use the promo code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. How about that deal? 50% off plus free shipping. Once again, the code factorpodcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Again, factormeals.com. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. A lot of people questioned whether or not Texas baseball would be able to compete in the SEC, especially in year 1. It's the best conference in the sport, bar none. The last 4 national champions have all been SEC teams. I mean, this league is a beast. Was Texas ready? And then the questions got louder when the Longhorns let go of David Pierce and brought in Jim Schlossnagle. Not that Schloss was a bad coach, but could a first-year head coach taking over a program that had been lacking talent in recent years, could he turn things around in year 1? So far, those questions have been answered with resounding yeses as the Longhorns go on the road and sweep Mississippi State to open up SEC play. The winning streak is now at 17 for Texas baseball. By the way, I fully expect Texas to be ranked in the top 10 in every poll later today. I think in one of the 3 main polls, they were in the top 10 last week. I think today they will be in the top 10 in all 3 of the major polls. They're awesome. Quick recap of the weekend. Friday night, 8-7 victory. No game on Saturday due to inclement weather in Starkville. So you had a 7-inning doubleheader yesterday. The Horns won them both, 5-3 in the early game, 4-1 at the nightcap. Going back to Friday, incredible game, back and forth. Texas was up 2-0. Then they were down 4-2. Then they were down 5-3. And they were down 5-3 going into the 7th inning. Longhorns put up 5 in the top of the 7th. Will Gasparino and Rylan Galvan, RBI singles. And then Casey Borba with a 3-run Bor bomb. He's been awesome. Wasn't quite sure what type of role he was going to have. Thought he was like the 10th man for this Texas baseball team. He has forced his way into the starting lineup. He hits the 3-run homer to give Texas the 8-5 lead. Things got dicey in the bottom of the 9th inning. Andre Duplantier did a great job in the 6th, 7th, and 8th, but ran into some trouble in the 9th. Dylan Valanthus comes in. He gives up a 2-run double. It's an 8-7 ball game. The crowd's going nuts. The tying runs on second base. But Jalen Flores, an incredible backhanded play and a strong throw to first to end the game. Texas gets the win. And then more late-inning heroics yesterday. The first game, 3-3, going into the top of the 7th. Again, the top of the 7th is like the top of the 9th when you have one of those Sunday doubleheaders because the games are only 7 innings long. Max Ballou, who's been hitting the ball for contact but hasn't quite shown the same power that he had last year when he hit 18 home runs for Texas. 2-run home run 2-run go-ahead home run in the top of the 7th to make it 5-3. And again, things got dicey in the home half. Tommy Farmer, if you haven't seen this catch, just go search it. Go find the highlight. It's SportsCenter top 10 worthy. Diving catch in left field. Mississippi State had a runner on with nobody out. If that ball falls, it's 2 men on with nobody out. Hell, maybe it's 5-4. Maybe a run scores from first on that play. Great catch by Tommy Farmer. State was still threatening. 2 men on. Go ahead, run at the plate. But Dylan Volantis gets out of the jam with the pop-up. That ends game 1, and then 4-1 the final in game 2 yesterday. How about Jason Flores and Max Grubbs combining to give up just 1 run in the series finale? Had to use Volantis out of the pen a couple of times, so he was unavailable. Those 2 guys pitching all 7 innings and, again, giving up just 1 run. Huge. Rylan Galvan went deep again. Another RBI for Casey Borba. Ethan Mendoza added some insurance late. I'm giving you a lot of names because it was a total team effort in Starkville. This Texas team is deep, man, and they can beat you in a number of different ways. The pitching was great. The bullpen was fantastic. The offense came through when it needed to, time after time, like a Cyndi Lauper song. The defense, which had been the biggest bugaboo for Texas for the first few weeks of the season, they made some incredible plays. Talked about Farmer and Flores. Those are just 2 out of many that you could point to from Texas over the weekend. It was just an all-around performance, and what a way to introduce yourself to the rest of the SEC. Mississippi State's a good team. They were 12-4 going in. They were picked to finish right behind Texas in the preseason poll. I think Texas was 8th and State was 9th. Texas in their house wins all 3. Big-time stuff right there. Up next for Texas, tomorrow they will host UTSA, and then what a way to open up your home slate in the Southeastern Conference. Number 1/number 2 LSU coming to town. The Tigers look very good. They're 20-1 on the year. They swept Missouri and Baton Rouge. Mizzou's not very good, but hey, a sweep is a sweep. LSU's legit. They won it all 2 years ago. This will be a big-time test for Texas to see if the Longhorns are true national championship contenders. You win 17 in a row. I don't care who you're playing. 4 of these wins have come against SEC teams. Oklahoma State's in there as well. Texas Tech's in there as well. Some other major conference opponents that Texas has beaten in this win streak. They're playing some damn good ball. A&M got swept by Alabama at home. Sorry about that, Aggies. You thought you'd be better without Schloss. Doesn't seem to be the case. In the words of Maury Povich, the lie detector determined that that was a lie. So we'll preview the LSU series as this week goes along. But, man, what a weekend for Texas baseball. 3 incredibly entertaining games on the road. More importantly, though, 3 wins for Jim Schloss-Nagle. Yeah, Texas having its best start to the season since 2005. And I think we all remember how that 05 season went down. We'd like to repeat that here 20 years later. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and rate and subscribe and leave a comment to help us grow. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Texas men's tournament draw, Texas women's tournament draw, and this Texas baseball team as well. So many good things going on the 40 acres, and we're here to talk about it with you on Locked On Longhorns. Thank you all for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball Show with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Yeah, March is here. You want to be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness, and you want to win your bracket contest. Find the Locked On College Basketball Podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to be the most informed fan all month long. We'll talk more Texas basketball tomorrow. We'll get back into some Texas Longhorn football as well. That's going to do it for today's show. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Horns up, mics off. Until next time, we'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.